The African Commission on Human and People's Rights, a meeting at its 60th ordinary session held from 8th to 22nd May 2017 in Niamey, Niger, passed a resolution 372 on protection of sacred natural sites, SNS. This was after a series of meetings and discussions between the Commission and civil society following a call made by the African custodians of SNS. The call, which was made and signed by the custodians meeting in 2014 in Ethiopia, called the Commission to recognize the role played by sacred natural sites as critical ecological, cultural, and spiritual areas important in the conservation of all forms of biodiversity and ecosystems. The call also asked the Commission to recognize the custodian community's role in holding responsibility for protection of these places and as their ancestral and cultural rights on behalf of the entire world community. Since the passing of the resolution, some African countries, including Uganda, Ethiopia, Benin, Kenya, Zimbabwe, and South Africa, led by ABN partner members, have taken initiatives towards its implementation. However, although these initiatives have borne good results at the grassroots levels with custodians and their communities, there is yet more work to be done at their national government levels. Such work should translate into practical translation of the resolution into different policy frameworks as one way of addressing the current crisis about biodiversity destruction and its consequent effect on community food security and climate change. It is at this level that the African Biodiversity Network ABN is moving to partner with different African communities to implement this Resolution 372 at grassroots level. All this work on Resolution 372, influencing the African Commission, working with custodians in Bulisa, and the ordinance process, was initiated and supported by the Gaia Foundation. This gathering in Hoima for the ABN partners was supported by SIDA. In Uganda, the African Institute for Culture and Ecology, Africe, has already accompanied the indigenous Bagungu community implement this resolution through protection of 32 sacred natural sites and use of indigenous knowledge systems to conserve biodiversity. In May 2023, Africe, in partnership with the African Biodiversity Network ABN, organized a meeting of partners from Ethiopia, Niger, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Uganda, among others, in Bulisa district to discuss the implementation of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights Resolution 372. The meetings that took place in Hoima and Bulisa districts aimed at forging a way forward on conserving biodiversity through strengthening community and ecosystem resilience. This Ugandan event was held under the theme supporting the implementation of the activities aligned with the African Commission Resolution 372 on protection of sacred natural sites and territories under the East African sub-region. This action by the African elders and civil society organizations is a deliberate move to hold state actors to hold sacred natural sites in high esteem towards observance of rights of nature. Indeed, some cultural institutions and Bulisa District Council in Uganda have come up to partner with Africe in restoration of the degenerating cultural values as the only approach to restore nature. Bunyoro Kitara, Toro, and Buganda kingdoms are some of the cultural institutions that heed to the call by Africe and ABN to restore the role of custodial clans in protection of sacred natural sites. Andrew Byakutaga is the Prime Minister of the famous Bunyoro Kitara Kingdom. He has expressed concern over the rampant destruction of sacred natural sites in the wake of extractives in the region. In a speech read for him by the first Deputy Prime Minister and also Minister for Culture, Nyenduoha Motiti, the Premier explains that continued destruction and encroachment on sacred sites has resulted into loss of biodiversity, plant pollinators, and contributed to environmental degradation.
You see, most of these cultural sites, are either in the forests or up the hills. So when you destroy forests and you tamper with some hills, then you are likely to cause what is happening what you have referred to. Yeah.
During a meeting organized by the African Biodiversity Network, African Institute for Culture and Ecology, and Kenya's Maendeleo Endelevu Action Program in the Albertine region, cultural experts from different parts of Africa, including Ethiopia, Niger, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Uganda, called for a robust action to stop destruction of nature.
I think from this, we picked that everybody has a role and a responsibility in the community. One, women had their role, planting and harvesting and taking the seeds. Men has a responsibility. Theirs is to identify and help protect. So what I picked from this is that we can actually organize ourselves, both men and women in our communities, to make the desired change, what we want to see.
Mu baturage bacu cyangwa se mu duce ko tugiye tumeze aho twabonye inzira banyuzemo kugira ngo bagere aho bari ho kubungabunga umuco wabo kubungabunga umwimerere wabo kandi ari mwiza kuko turi abanyafrika tugomba kubaho ubuzima bwacu kuko ubundi buzima n'ubw'abandi. There
are seeds which are medicinal for treating many kind of diseases, which is a perfect way of documenting our indigenous language for the next generation. And I was so happy to exchange ideas with our elderly women, our elderly men, and also indigenous people in general. And I'm happy and I'm ready to learn and take back my experience to my country.
Kama Mbarokea tunafanya kazi na ABN na tutahakikisha kwamba kile ambacho amekusudia kuhakikisha kwamba hatuharibu mazingira, tunatunza asili yetu, tunatunza mimea, tunatunza kila kitu ambacho kinatokea kama asili kitaendelezwa Tanzania vile vile. Kwa hiyo kazi kama hii ambayo imefanyika hapa tunatarajia pia hata Tanzania itaweza kufanyika. Tutawaita na wenyewe wataweza kujifunza kuangalia maeneo mbalimbali ambayo yamehifadhiwa kwa ajili ya kuendeleza vile vitu vya asili kama vinavyofanyika hapa Uganda.
The meeting deliberated on biodiversity conservation through strengthening community and ecosystem resilience, among others. It was held under the theme supporting the implementation of the activities aligned to the African Commission Resolution 372 on protection of sacred natural sites and territories under the East African Sub-Region Node.
The purpose of this meeting was to bring together the partners in the region to learn about the process of Uganda on protection of sacred natural sites. This protection of sacred natural sites comes from a resolution which was made by the African Commission on human and people's rights. And they made a resolution which came to be popularly known as Resolution 372. And part of this, this meeting, or part of the implementation of that resolution, these meetings which are being supported by a African Biodiversity Network in the whole of Africa. Now we have been here and the partners had come to learn about the Africe experience and our work in Uganda, especially in Bulisa districts, where we have been working with custodians of sacred natural sites and clans.
The executive director, Africe, Dennis Tabaro, explained that they started the campaign to conserve sacred natural sites and territories in Bugungu, Bulisa, because they are attached to their clans. Tabaro says there is need for these sites to be resuscitated since the Africa Commission Resolution 372 empowers people to talk and conserve these natural sites and territories.
It is very important to protect these sacred natural sites because, to be clear, sacred natural sites are ecological and cultural places, natural places, which are found within forests, rivers, lakes, and wetlands. And they form the lungs and the heart of those ecosystems. The heart of a forest, the heart of a wetland, the heart of a river. And we protect those. Our communities have been protecting this for so many years. But now, because of influence of modernity, influence of mainstream religion, these custodians have been suppressed. They could not talk about this. And yet, these places are very important for climate change because they regulate the climate change. They are habitats of all sorts of biodiversity. Talk about animals, talk about birds, talk about insects. They are all from there. And at the same time, they provide medicine for communities.
The General Coordinator, African Biodiversity Network, Fasil Gebeyehu Yelemtu, says problems of African countries are similar.
It has been an inspiring experience in relation to what is really going to be taken home as a lesson, and also to inspire other African communities elsewhere. So they have been engaged with different process, an engaging process at a community level, and then inspiration and encouragement with lots of challenge, also interacting with different stakeholders, including government. And also we also have been involved in different levels to also link them regionally in their efforts, and also in collaboration with our ally in the UK called Gaia Foundation.
The head of Regional Development Corporation in Africa, Embassy of Sweden, Ola Adren, says working with communities on climate change is not the final solution, but part of the solution, noting that climate change is globally affecting biodiversity and this can only be reverted by using indigenous knowledge.
We strongly believe that climate change is severely negatively affecting the biodiversity on the globe, and therefore measures need to be taken. Biodiversity is probably the most important for food security, for food safety. And indigenous knowledge has been severely underestimated in this regard. And that's why we have opted to cooperate with the Africa Biodiversity Network to see to it that we can capture the indigenous knowledge, to have the seeds that are available locally safeguarded for the biodiversity for food production. This is very, very important in a situation where we have more and more difficulties in securing the food safety in many countries. So we are very happy about this cooperation with Africa Biodiversity Network.
The Acting Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, Bulisa District, Samuel Magambo, says that on November 19th, 2019, Bulisa District Council passed an ordinance to recognize customs and the culture of the Bagungu.
In 2019, came up with the customary laws of Bagungu, and these laws were one in the interest of protecting the following: the indigenous land of Bagungu, the custodian sites, the sacred natural sites of Bagungu, the rights of the Balamansi, who are the custodians, and the rules of nature which govern society. When the custodians came up with these laws, we appreciated as a district that they will go a long way to protecting our environment, because traditionally there were no laws protecting the environment, but it is the systems within the cultures of Bagungu that put up mechanisms for protecting the environment. And these were the employers. The sacred natural sites were specific ecosystems which were protected from any encroachment by anybody. So given that background, the district deemed it necessary to work together with the custodians of these employers or the sacred natural sites to come up with clear laws in form of an ordinance